Good evening from New York. Good evening from New York, Mr. Selwyn Collins. It is not usual that I have a show on Friday evening, but the gentleman next to me, Professor Ivelaw Griffith, um, is the new Vice Chancellor of the University of Guyana, is visiting New York, and his schedule is very tight. So this is sort of an impromptu conversation because it's important for us to have this conversation with Professor Griffith to learn from him what his last 6 months or his first 6 months at the university was like and what it means. And Professor Griffith, let me start by asking you, how would you describe UG's renaissance? What would that look like?
Let me begin, Selvin, by thanking you for the opportunity, impromptu though it is, to have a conversation with you again, and by virtue of your conversation with you, a conversation through to all of your viewers and listeners. Let me secondly say that greetings for the seasons to everyone. Happy Thanksgiving to those of us who celebrate Thanksgiving, and I look forward to enabling all of us to welcome the new year in grand and healthy ways. I think responding to the question about what would the Renaissance look like requires a response to the question, what are some of the objectives of the Renaissance? And an effort to understand what some of the objectives of the Renaissance are requires me to say a little bit about the condition of the university that I had the opportunity to become Vice Chancellor of a little more than 5 months, 5.5 months ago. The University of Guyana has sadly, regrettably, unfortunately, suffered from a number of insufficiencies, what I call sometimes described as stormy seas. The stormy sea, the insufficiency relating to resources, the stormy sea, the insufficiency related to attitude on the part of people who work there. Stormy sea, insufficiency in relation to the research, what I call the perspicacity of the enterprise. And so the Renaissance has some objectives based upon those insufficiencies. The overall Renaissance goal is to have the University of Guyana become an economic and an educational enterprise way above that it is right now, one that restores the sense of intellectual self, one that restores the sense of educational value added, and one that looks to see how best can the university leverage the potential of the nation called Republic of Guyana to be able to do the things that the people of Guyana and the region in which Guyana finds itself expect and demand. And so looking at the Renaissance enables us to say, well, one important goal is to rebuild the research. One important goal is to rebuild the image and the credibility. One important goal is to deal with the human capital insufficiency. One important goal is to right-size the insufficiency insofar as resources. And Selwyn, we don't have the luxury at the University of Guyana. We don't have the luxury in Guyana. We don't have the luxury in the diaspora in supporting the university to do one thing at a time. We've got to do something about the human capital, while we do something about the branding, while we do something about the resource acquisition, all being synergistically connected. So the Renaissance is a broad project, and we can talk about elements of that breadth as we go along.
In an editorial, the UG Renaissance, I think that's what it's called, editorial, you encourage students to get involved in something other than classes, a club or sports, volunteer in the community, or join the undergraduate research program. Why and how valuable to a student is extracurricular activity?
let me answer that question in two ways, in a general way and then a more specific way, using myself as an example.
Mm-hmm.
No university education, whether it's University of Guyana education, University of the West Indies, University of Suriname, York College is part of the City University of Guyana, of New York. No university education is only about the things that happen in the classrooms and in the labs. University education should be about some collective experiences. And some of those experiences are gained in the extracurricular activities, whether they be sports, whether they be clubs, whether they be religious entities, whether they be political entities, because those experiences, when you marry them with what happens in the classroom, what happens in the labs, what happens in the between the classes, they are what give rise to the whole rounded educational person. And so for me, encouraging students to get involved in those broader experiential opportunities is enabling them to have a more holistic. So you come out, let's say you major in biology, but you're not only a biology major, you're a biology major who has had some leadership skills, who in the context of that leadership practice, whether in a club, in the University of Guyana Student Society, in the community, you learn things about yourself you didn't know. You learn teamwork in ways in which you don't necessarily have to have the teamwork in the classes, all the classes that you take. So I think University of Guyana, as any university, is looking to produce some whole individuals, not just individuals focused on a technical or educational set of skills. I use my example. I was a very active student leader at University of Guyana. And I had an experience which, and I recounted it only 2 weeks ago to the first and second year medical students at the university. I was talking to them about getting involved in something else. I was going to a conference of international student leaders in North Korea. This was in the 1970s. This was 1976, I think, or 75. Because I was coming from a country that was left-leaning, Guyana at the time was left-leaning,
Yes.
and going to a communist country, although I had to pass through United Kingdom, I was not going to stay there. I just had to transit. When I got to London, I was declared persona non grata by the United Kingdom authorities. And I was given a letter restraining me from going anywhere beyond my hotel. Of course, called the High Commission of Guyana.
Mm-hmm.
They did the appropriate protesting and the appropriate explanations to the Home Office, the equivalent of the Ministry of Home Affairs. And the next day, I was sent to Rolls-Royce to be taken to the airport because it was a big blunder on the part of the Home Office. Now, that's not the kind of experience you get in a book, in any class. I grew several years. I was a 19-year-old kid from Guyana. I grew because of that experience of managing, of learning, of knowing. And so I say to folks, don't be wedded only to the classes. You want to excel in the classes, but you also want to give some broader experiences to your being so that your educational journey can be a whole journey at the end of whether it's 3 years or 4 years or 2 years.
6 months. What can you report to us today that you believe you have accomplished in this last 6 months? As a matter of fact, let me ask you the question this way. In retrospect, what are some things you wanted to accomplish in these first 6 months, but couldn't? And what are some things you actually did accomplish in these 6 months?
I don't think there are too many things that I wanted to accomplish in the first 6 months which are going to be going to come full circle December 14.
Mm-hmm.
Because I understood the reality going in, although it was not fully understanding the full reality until I got there. And so I had some aggressive goals, and I think as time went by, I tempered the aggression, but still pushed the envelope. And pushed the envelope to the extent where I think most of what I wanted to do in the first 6 months will have been done by the time December 14 comes around. But let me tell you one thing which I was hoping I would have been able to do much more of. And that is, I was hoping to do much more of resource acquisition than we were able to do. And it's one of my small disappointments, and I'll share it with you in candor in a minute. But I think notwithstanding that resource acquisition, I was able to, with the team, both in Guyana and outside of Guyana, and you have been one of those people outside of Guyana, doing two sets of things. One is achieving some tangibles. And I'll tell you what some of those tangibles are. And the second is setting the stage for other tangibles along what I call Renaissance Road. One of those tangibles, Selwyn, is I was able to resolve, within a month of my going there, a labor dispute where several people had not been getting their pay. I said, we got to pay those people. 23% retroactive from January 2016. There are several employees in the two categories, UA and UB, whose uniform allowances, their travel allowances, were all victim to that dispute. I acted. There are some small but important elements in the human capital which I began to make some incremental progress on, setting the stage. I happened to have gone there June 14. June 19 was Father's Day. I had a Father's Day brunch.
On June 19.
On June 19. 45 men showed up. I didn't pick them. I just said to the department, send me one or two fathers. We had a wonderful fellowship of the fathers of that university. I asked each of them to go around and introduce themselves, talk about your family. There was one gentleman who, he so badly wanted an opportunity for that fellowship. He almost made the rest of the 44 of us, and my wife was there for that episode until she had to leave. He talked about not knowing his father until he was about 23 years old. He talked about the father leaving himself and the mother. He talked about the struggle with the mother over the years to find out where his father was. And it took a while, not until he was 17, 18, did she relent. So that was an important sense of creating morale lift, letting people know that you value them for who they are, their fathers. And one of the points I made is that fathers on campus don't stop their fathering when they get to the Turkana campus or the Berbice campus. Their roles as father in the home and in the village gets transferred. And so that is one of the very useful, both accomplishing, helping to build morale, but also setting the stage for people to know that their value. But I think, although I've got some disappointment with the resource acquisition, which I'll come back to talk in a little bit, I'm very proud that we did something in those first 5 months at the University of Guyana that was never done before. When I was alerted that we'll be having financial difficulty to make it through the calendar year, Vice Chancellor, we have to work out a plan to cut. I said, what is there to cut? We're not cutting anything. We are going to go to the government and ask for more money. Oh, well, we've never done that. Well, we do it for the first time. We made a submission. And again, thanks to the network and understanding the value of leveraging relationships, I made a request for 225 million Guyana dollars. We worked through the process, back and forth conversations with Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Education. Our request went to the Cabinet. The Cabinet approved 109.8 million. That went to the National Assembly, approved. That for me is an important achievement in a few months, that also lets me believe that the government of Guyana now is willing to put its money where its mouth is. That for me is a signally important achievement.
What keeps your adrenaline pumping about where you want to take the University of Guyana?
I think it's a DNA disposition of people like myself who Leos, who like a challenge.
Mm-hmm.
And not only like a challenge, but like a challenge where you see the opportunity to make a difference. And I see the University of Guyana 3 years from now, a year from now, being in such a different place, both internally and the respect factor within and outside of Guyana. And so meeting the various components of that challenge keeps my adrenaline pumping.
You know, recently I think there was some protests about tuition fees. I think the whole thing was rescinded, reversed. What is the realistic, or what are some realistic impact on an institution like the University of Guyana without the increase of or appropriate increase of tuition fees?
Having to forego that 5% adjustment means we've got to look for 80 million Guyana dollars elsewhere. But I say we'll look for it. Because for me it was important that the university undo what we attempted to do. It was inappropriate, unrealistic, un-student friendly to tell students in the 5th week of the semester that you've got to pay 5% more. It doesn't matter what the economic rationale was. The what was undermined by the how. The how undermined the what. And so we do have a need for the resources that would come from the tuition adjustment. You know, one of the realities of University of Guyana is our tuition is very cost efficient. Some people say cheap. I say cost efficient. And the subsidy that is provided by the government and the inability of the government over the last decade or so to provide the requisite subventions to keep quality up meant that we have been providing a suboptimal product at the University of Guyana. And so you've got to marry the reality that if you want to enhance the product, and the product is not only what comes out at the end, it's what you do with the students you take in. What kind of classrooms you provide them, what kind of qualified lecturers you provide them, what kind of lab facilities you provide them. You've got to do something about adjusting the cost at the front end. That is a reality that is going to, and I've said to the students I met with, we're going to have to face that. And it may very well be that next year and the year after, it's not 5%, maybe 10 or 12%. Because when you look at what the University of Guyana charges as a price point, and when you look at what is the cost of the educational product, and we're looking at a product not to be the same product we've been offering over the last few years, I'm interested in enabling our students to have a different product, different value added. We've got to go there. But I was prepared to act condignly on that because it was the wrong thing to do. To tell students 5 weeks into the semester, oh, we have some technical electronic stuff, you're just going to have to deal with it. No. And I think not only did the students appreciate my acting swiftly to deal with that situation, I think it allows us to build a respect in the broader community that allows when we go back and ask various constituencies, government, alumni, businesses, they will understand that we're not coming for mendicancy. We're coming because we've got a definite deficit to meet, and we've got an opportunity to lift the quality. If you want to keep the quality or lack of it we've been having at the university for the last X years, that's one thing. But I'm not interested in that because we are better deserving than that.
You took quite a personal sacrifice went to Guyana and take up his position as Vice Chancellor. With all its various challenges, there is one that stands out, and that's the culture.
Mhm.
How did you personally adjust or deal with that? Is it still a problem?
It is still a challenge. But let me, before responding directly to the question, say to you and to your viewers and listeners, it's not just a sacrifice on my part. It's a sacrifice on part of my family. Because we're a very strong family. My wife and I have been together 30-something years.
Congratulations.
We're going to be celebrating 30 years next year, married. And so one does not make that sacrifice personally with that kind of family unit without the family having to make some sacrifices, significant sacrifices. So it's a sacrifice made by my wife, made by my son in California, my daughter in New York, my son-in-law in New York, members of the extended family, all of whom are making the sacrifice. But, I was saying to someone 2 days ago in Guyana that the reacculturation is happening slowly. And I realize when I pronounce a certain letter of the alphabet, when I said in a meeting Z instead of Z, that I had been reacculturating to Guyana. But I've lived more years of my life outside of Guyana than inside of Guyana. And something that Francis Kwame wrote in May of this year in the run-up to the Golden Jubilee, wrote an interesting piece dedicated to Guyanese who are coming home for the Golden Jubilee. He made it very candidly. If you left your native land 10 or 20 years ago, you're not coming back to the same country. And so he wanted Guyanese coming home for the Golden Jubilee both to have a sense of that reality and to be prepared for seeing a nation and experiencing a cultural shift that is maybe unaccustomed to them if they think of the Guyana that they left on a permanent basis. And so, yes, it is still a challenge. It is a challenge because norms have begun to, over the years, change. Values have changed. It's not a candid thing that many people like to hear, but our nation has an integrity issue. And you see it and you feel it. You see it on campus, you see it in buildings. Vice Chancellor's official residence was, like many other things, left to virtually fall apart. And so we were looking for housing. Selwyn, so many of the houses we went to, we're saying, how could people build like this? The quality, concern about safety is not there. And I find it on campus. I've begun to speak very candidly to the contractors. And I said, if you bring in substandard product, not only am I not paying you the remainder of your money, but I'm taking you to court to get what I pay you back. It is such an appalling reality. One of the biggest culture shocks is the concern with quality, the lack of concern with things. It is, how can we get more money out of something without? Okay. And another example, we paid a lot of money on a World Bank funded project. All the microscopes are substandard, every one of them. Every one of them. 30 minutes after you started using them, they started to overheat. So part of my adjustment is having to live with and try to make adjustments in how we value quality on campus. And that is a challenge that is not only campus focused, it's a national issue. And so part of my readjustment is precisely that. How do you build acceptance for excellence? How do you say to people that the money is important, but there is something more than the money? You got to do a good job. You've got to earn the money that you bill me for, whether it's a product or a service. That is a significant challenge, and it's going to require a whole of nation embracing. I gave a keynote last Sunday at the 9th Medical Scientific Conference of Guyana, and I was quite candid. I said, you as a medical community, you have got a responsibility to put excellence and integrity and respect front and center. You're going to have some uncomfortable conversations with your own folks. But you can't, nothing in a nation like Guyana can be done to resolve some of those issues we've got only by looking to the government. It's how civic society, how civil society, how non-governmental organizations can help to lift the excellence boat, help to lift the integrity boat, help to lift the respect boat. I was saying to them, there's got to be something wrong with respect and integrity, respect for laws, that we have so many vehicular homicides. Nobody wants to wait. Nobody wants to pay attention to the laws that said, this person is coming, give him some space. Everybody wants to. So that acculturation is a work in progress.
These observations, are they part of a larger group of observations that you made after you made your initial assessment of what you had to deal with 6 months ago?
I started a tradition at University of Guyana, which I had at other universities I've had the opportunity to lead at. And that is, not only have I been going out to speak to individual groups, civic organizations, diplomatic organizations, but I've been having a lot of people come onto the campus, one-on-ones, 1-on-3, 1-on-4s. And everyone with whom I have a conversation, I leave a gift pack. The gift pack includes my values and vision. And in there, I make it quite clear. Here are the things that are important for me, and here is the opportunity for you to help this university go to a different level. And so I try, and even if you will have had it before, I give you another copy. I say, give it to somebody else. Because it is important that people understand that not only am I talking a different talk, I'm walking a walk that the University of Guyana has not had in a while. So I want to be transparent about it. I don't want anybody to be surprised. And some people have begun to push back because how can this Vice Chancellor do this? Well, we need it. So I have not been shy about sharing and getting feedback and leaving my values and vision statement and enabling people to learn about where we're going. And saying to people on campus, if the new paradigm is not one that you want to be part of, exercise some options.
Yes.
And I'm saying to people off campus, we cannot rebuild this university. We cannot have Renaissance Road as a destination without your involvement. Your involvement means you've got to see the opportunity to do some things that maybe you had not done before.
At what point you think, a year from now, several months from now, a year from now, 2 years from now, with this new paradigm, this new intimacy, a vice chancellor, well, Freudian slip there, a vice chancellor developed with our community will make a noticeable impact on the university?
I think the prospects for that noticeable impact are good. Because the incremental achievements along the way are good.
Yes.
I'll give you 2 examples. Last Friday night, I had an outreach in Amsterdam. I was in Berbice for 2.5 days. We had a Berbice convocation on Saturday. Went up the Thursday. We had first time ever The reception for the graduating students, fabulous. On Friday, I had meetings on campus with administrators. I had a town hall meeting, met students. I had started something at your college that I've continued over the years. I meet with the students who are the valedictorian, oldest student graduating, and the youngest student graduating. Talk about their goals, their visions, their dreams. And the Friday night, I held an outreach dinner in New Amsterdam. It was across racial and ethnic lines. It was across political lines. The regional chairman was there. The regional executive officer was there. Mayor of New Amsterdam was there. Banks was there. Banks DIH was there. NBS was there. Scotiabank. The senior executives. Police was there. Health was there. And we had a robust conversation, a very candid conversation about these insufficiencies and how they are obligated to help, especially since many of them are products, are alums of the university. That was Friday night. Wonderful ceremony on Saturday. Saturday night, I'm back in Georgetown. Sunday morning, I'm taking my morning walk. The phone rings. I thought maybe it's my wife or a daughter, because we're having our first grandchild coming very soon. It was someone from that dinner who called to say, Vice Chancellor, I am with you. This is a businessman. I want to be one of the first to help you build that Renaissance bridge you talk about.
Wow.
I want to make my initial contribution of 100,000 Guyana dollars. I said, thank you, sir. I'm not going to tell you his name.
Right. One day later.
One day later. And he wanted to know he was in Georgetown for a funeral that Sunday. He said, I'm not a Georgetown person. I don't know how to get around Georgetown. I said, well, if you want, you can bring it to my residence, or you can take it, send it to the university the next day. He sent it to the university the next day. The person with whom he sent it only wanted to meet me. I was not there the Monday. I was not there the Tuesday available. Wednesday, I got delivered 100,000 Guyana dollars. People have begun to put money where mouth is. Next Saturday, we're having the Sister Noel Minier's Distinguished Lecture Inauguration. The announcement, I just posted it on Facebook a couple of hours ago. Among the major co-sponsors of that event is Banks DIH. Companies beginning to put their money where their mouth is. I started a series called Turkine and Tain Talks.
Yes.
First one was on Brexit. Second one was on suicide. The third one was on US. Actually, the third one was in Berbice, agriculture in Berbice. Fourth one was US elections, impact on Guyana, the hemisphere. Each of those Turkine Talks has corporate and other co-sponsors. As a matter of fact, for the one on suicide, the UNICEF representative to Guyana came to see me on something other than suicide. So when she was leaving, I said, Marianne, how would you like to be a co-sponsor on this event coming up 2 weeks from now? She said, whatever you want, Vice Chancellor, I'll fund it. UNICEF is a co-sponsor, and then UNICEF heard, PAHO, WHO heard, so I said, ask them. They put in a couple of $1,000. So for me, it is how do you build the ownership by various constituencies? And this has got to be an all-inclusive project.
Yes.
I'm not interested in what political party you're in. I'm not interested in what your racial or political proclivities are. If you're willing to be in this tent, under this tent for the right reason, you're welcome.